How do we move beyond our ego roles and get in touch with our true self? The first step is to identify what our ego role is. Am I the caretaker? Am I the hero? Am I the scapegoat? Am I the victim? Am I the mediator? These are just some of the ideas of ego roles that we might be born into, but also conditioned to be within our family system. The second step would be to notice where this role is limiting our lives, where our ego enforcing that we must always play this role might be wrecking our entire lives. If we could only just step out of this role, if we could only just say no to always being this thing, what would change? And then the third is step into the discomfort of that. So to actually look for the ways that role might manifest in your life, and ways that you can say no, ways that you can set up boundaries, ways that you can choose something different. I don't have to be the caretaker for everyone. I don't have to be the caretaker for you. I only need to caretake myself. Look for ways that you can step out of the role in a conscious way, in a non-reactive way, making a choice. Every time you do that, though, you lose a sense of your identity. And that's why the ego holds on to it so tightly. The ego is formed in childhood, and that's when these roles are really set into your persona. So the ego is our sense of identity. So when we step out of the role, it feels like to the ego that we are literally losing our identity. But we're not. Our true identity is the true self. It has nothing to do with the role. The role is simply something that we're good at, something that we have an innate nature to do. But it's not us. We are something much, much bigger than that. How do we find that? Who are we? A lot of my clients say, who am I if I'm not the caretaker? Who am I if I'm not the hero? And sometimes the role for the scapegoat is to hate ourselves. Who am I if I don't hate myself? And you can see from these questions how identified you can be with your ego role. But you can also see that ego role is not you. You're something much, much bigger than that. So what you want to do is you just want to define the ego role and try to step out of that. And in order to do that, you're going to feel like you're losing your sense of identity. But it's a persona. It's a mask. It's not really you. So you have to sit in the discomfort of that empty space of identity. And that might be for weeks. It might be for months. It could even go on for a year as you're doing this deep shadow work. But what happens eventually is the true self emerges within the space left by the role. The true self can finally express itself. Its voice can be heard. What is it saying from deep within your soul that has nothing to do with that ego role, that the ego role is constantly trying to enforce you to do? They're two very distinct parts of you. The ego is a function of the mind that creates your identity. The higher self is the witness to all of this. And it has all of the parts of yourself, not just the ego role. You're actually the opposite of the ego role too. You're just unconscious of it. So you can even bring that in a little bit, integrate the shadow side of the ego role. And that is the task, because that makes you whole and it leaves a hole. And in the space of the whole, the true self emerges. This is a slow process. You can have big epiphanies with it, for sure. But the process itself can take months. It can take a year. But once it does, you are forever changed, and you can begin to hear yourself. You can begin to see who you are beyond the ego role. And can you still perform out of the ego role? Sure, because it's generally based off of your nature in some point, in some way or the other. So it will still be a way that you might function throughout the world, but only consciously, only as a tool, not as an identity, not as a suppression of the self. So try that out. Think about what your ego role is. Who am I? Who do you see yourself? And where is it limiting you? Pull that back and really start to listen to the voice within. When you have free will, when you have choice, what does it say? What might you choose differently than the role?